In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White. Tonight, I'm going to start the show with our Black History reflection before I introduce our guest. Our reflection tonight will be about Mr. August Wilson. August Wilson stands as one of the most profound literary architects of Black American identity. His work, most notably the Pittsburgh Cycle, captured the heartbeat, the struggle, the triumph, and the unbreakable spirit of African Americans across 10 decades. Wilson didn't just write plays, he wrote our memory. He wrote our wounds, he wrote our resilience through the characters who were flawed, brilliant, bruised, and beautifully human. He preserved the emotional truth of Black life in America. Wilson believed that Black stories were not only worthy of the stage, they were essential to the American narrative. His legacy reminds us that when we speak our truth, we reclaim our power. When we honor our voice, we honor our lineage. And when we stand unapologetically in our identity, we appreciate space for generations to rise. Tonight, as we welcome a woman who is dedicated to helping others reclaim their voice and step boldly into their power, we honor August Wilson, a man who taught us that our stories are our inheritance and our courage is our contribution. So, as we go, let me tell you some things about our guest before I bring her to the stage. Again, welcome to another powerful episode of America in Black and White. And tonight, we're diving deep into the heart of confidence, leadership, and transformative journey of choosing yourself fully, boldly, and without apology. In a world where high achieving women often carry the weight of expectations, responsibilities, and silent battles, many find themselves surviving on autopilot, successful on the outside, yet disconnected on the inside. But tonight's guest is a force dedicated to changing that narrative. She's a woman who walked away from the comfort of corporate America to build a platform rooted in truth, empowerment, and intentional living. She is a voice for women who gave everything to everyone and are finally ready to give something back to themselves. She is a leader who believes that confidence isn't luxury, it's a foundation. Tonight, we welcome Michelle Clarkson, founder and CEO of Meaningful Moments of Power. Her work is transforming lives, shifting mindsets, and helping women step up into the fullness of who they are. Let's get into it and let's bring Michelle Clarkson to the show. Hello, how are you doing, young lady?
I am doing amazing. How are you? So good to be back with you again.
Yes, yes, it is totally, totally wonderful, and I appreciate you for coming back and giving us these updates of these wonderful things that are going on with you. Before we get into the show, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience?
Well, one, I'm just glad that you all are here and we're going to have an amazing conversation tonight. So, stay tuned.
Here we go. So I'm going to start first where I like to have the audience get the opportunity to learn more about Michelle before Michelle became Michelle Clarkson, that's doing all these wonderful things that you're doing.
Mhm.
Can you take us back to where who was young Michelle before the titles, the leadership, and the platform?
Hmm. Young Michelle before the leadership, the titles, and the platform was an amazing young woman who embarked on a journey of, okay, hey, after I graduated from high school and went to college, life started. And after leaving college, my life shifted because at that point I was engaged in a domestic abuse relationship. And so that is where the first turning point in my life happened, where I understood how important self confidence is, loving yourself, choosing you. And so after surviving that relationship and rebuilding myself, therapy, faith in God, then I had said at that point, I want to be able to help other women who have experienced the same thing on their journey. But I didn't act on that. So, moving forward, as I continued with my life, got married, having children, and then life happens again. And when life happened again at that point, I ended up getting divorced. But getting a divorce and living in a city with no support system, no family, and at the time that my divorce happened, it was at a pivotal point in my career where my career was changing, where I was getting more exposure, more responsibilities, but having all the weight of everything that I was carrying at home was a lot for me. But that's where I was able to step into my true leadership journey. I was at Honeywell for 20 years. And while I was there, served in various different roles, global leadership. And so that really gave me my lens into what leadership is really about, how leaders should operate, but more importantly, leadership as a woman. It comes with a different set of rules, expectations, and there are things that you learn along that journey. And so, being in that space for so long and growing, seeing so many things, really stepping into who I was, um, I made the decision that I want to make a difference in the lives of others, use my voice, however, didn't act on that. And so once it got to a point where life shifted and a major pivotal point happened, sometimes there are those things in life that push you to really step into your purpose and who you are. And all through my life, I've been someone who has always been a talker, used my voice, always the person trying to uplift and make everyone feel great, sometimes so much so that more than myself. And so knowing that when life happened yet again, and that was the passing of my father. And when I was at his bedside, when he was transitioning, the last thing that he said to me was, Michelle, you have to use your voice. And that was the last little nudge where it's like, okay, hey, there is no time for any more excuses. The time is now. And that's when I started planning my work and working my plan on how I could use my voice, make a difference in the world, make a difference in the community, and uplift women so that they understand that they're leaders. Whether you are CEO, you have a role as a leader in your job, you are the CEO of your life. And the most important job you have is leading you. So that's where it all started and how I got to forming meaningful moments of power.
So, what was one defining moment in your childhood that shaped your sense of identity?
I would say for myself that one thing about me, I always was kind of like the bookworm, uh, a good student, But there were times where I felt like the outsider and not fitting in with
Mhm.
everyone in where I, being who I was.
Mhm.
And so it was in those moments when I was going through school, more so I think it started in middle school, where I really saw that who I was, I stood out more than others, but in a way where standing out in a different way, a way in the fact that, like I said, I didn't feel like I fit in.
Mhm.
And so, because of that, who I am today is not who I was. Back then I was a very shy person, but pivotal moment that changed that was when I was in the sixth grade. My English teacher, Mrs. Williams, um, had recognized the fact that she was like, "You have a gift, the way that you write, the way that you communicate." And she took the time to invite me to her home, and we started doing things together on the weekend. And that was the pivotal moment for me where I knew that even if there's some things that you feel are different about you, you have gifts and abilities that you can use and use that gift. And it was from that moment where I just started using my voice more, being involved in activities where I'm uplifting other people, doing things where I can help others. So it goes all the way back to middle school. But like I said, that feeling of not fitting in, but realizing you do fit in, you are enough. And that's where that confidence started at that point, because when you feel like you're the one that's out there on an island by yourself, you have to learn some things about yourself to make you be okay with who you are.
So as you think about those, how things started with you as a young girl, and to now you are this leader, this influencer in helping other young women to do the things that they need to do.
Mhm.
How do you get that story over to them to where they understand that things don't always have to stay the same, but when you find that voice that's inside of you, how do you get them to bring that out?
Well, the one way I get them to bring it out, one is by sharing my lived experiences, because I think sometimes you can be the best teacher. And in my experiences that I've dealt with in life, there have been challenges that I faced in the workplace, challenges that I faced in my own life. But all of those challenges I was able to overcome. But it was only because of my mindset and my willingness to know that I wanted more, I wanted something different, and putting in the work to make it happen. And I think when sharing those experiences with women, it just helps them to see, kind of like the thing where we always say, well, if they can do it, I can do it too.
Mhm.
But it's that being honest and vulnerable, and sharing my stories, that is really how women are able to flip that switch and switch their mindset, of course with tools and different things that I guide them through. But being able to see someone who has struggled, who has been exactly where she is, but is not there today. And
Mhm.
those things, the work that I did, you can do the exact same thing. You can step into your power. You can be bold, unapologetic, and let them talk. Okay, let them say whatever.
Exactly.
Okay,
You
because
know,
they're gonna talk anyway.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so that resilience that you found within yourself. I mean, how much did your father, when you say he told you to use your voice, how much of that just help to make you raise the stakes for what you was gonna do?
So much so, I would truly say that I was blessed with the upbringing that I had, with the parents that I had, because even in today's world, you don't see people that are married for 30, 40, 50. They were childhood, high school sweethearts. But the thing that they instilled in both my brother and I was, yes, you can.
Mhm.
Yes, you can. No matter what it is, yes, you can. So that's what I grew up on. And it was funny, I was on another platform getting interviewed and kind of sharing the same thing and mentioning the fact that I can go back to my senior book from high school. And
Mhm,
on one of the pages, it said, "What is your favorite quote?"
mhm.
That quote that's down there is yes, you can. So that resilience and everything, it was built from my father and my parents both. They came from, humble upbringing, but they worked so hard to provide a great life for myself and my brother, focused on education, providing the best life as far as a loving home, supportive home. And all of those things help to shape the woman that I am. And my father, he was in corporate America and he was actually a leader himself. So growing up, I was able to watch him, go to work with him, see how he interacted with his team, how they responded to him, how he was a leader with empathy. And so those are some of the things that I embodied as a young girl that I took as I continued to grow older. And even when I started my first job at Burger King, I'll never forget. They always told me, "You're so much older than than you really are." And I'm like, "Yes, I'm just an old soul." But all of that was planted in me, at a young age. Just like they say, train up a child. And I'm just so thankful for the upbringing that I had.
So, who were the women in your life who modeled strength to you?
My mother is someone who models strength for me. Because the one thing about my mother, where I first learned about strength and setting a goal and achieving it, my mother, she went back to college when I was in high school,
Mm,
and watching her be the devoted mother, going to work every day, dealing with her corporate job, being the mother that never missed anything, any activity, everything that we had, she was engaged in that. And watching her build the life that she wanted to have. But the fact that when she was in college, there would be nights where I would get up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and she is up at 2, 3 in the morning studying, knowing that she has to get up and be at work the following day. And so watching her not make excuses, to make sure that she achieved what she set out to do, that's when I first started realizing what a strong woman really represents. A lot of times we think that strength from women comes from titles and things like that, but strength from a woman is shown and just exhibited by being able to maintain all those responsibilities that you have,
mhm.
but putting yourself first. And so, with all that she still had to do, one thing that she never stepped on and, always made the priority was her.
Mm,
She is a diva, and there are certain things that are non negotiable, okay? One being how you carry yourself.
right.
Presentation is everything. So, that presence and just seeing her strength and how she carried the family, supported us, but overcoming anything that came her way. And when I graduated from high school, she was graduating from college as well. So we both graduated together, and seeing that strength that she showed us during that time when life started happening for me, and there are times where it's like, oh, I'm tired, I want to give up. I always go back and I think about those times of the strength that she showed me. And she probably doesn't even realize that it was during those moments when she was dealing with that I was sitting back and taking all of that in. Where when I became a young woman, those were the things that I went back to reflect on how she carried herself, how she made herself a priority, how there are no excuses. It's like, no, we finish what we start and we do it well.
Wow. So, what did you learn early about responsibility and how did it shape your adulthood?
Well, the one thing that I learned, look, kind of going back to the strong woman. So I grew up in Indiana. I went to Indiana University. And if anyone knows basketball, you know Bobby Knight. And so it's funny because the nickname of my mother that my father gave her was Bobby Knight. So I grew up in a household where, as we say today, running the strict program, I grew up in a household where there was that strict program. So just being able to see those things, those are, at that point in my life, those were the things that stuck with me, for me to be able to embody that at that time.
So, so when you think about that, did this contribute more so to the discipline and the structure that you have today?
Oh, yes. Yes, because rules are rules, deadlines are deadlines, and we get things done. And the one thing that it did for me is the structure that was set in place for my life. Um, when you have a lot of responsibilities, you have to be structured, you have to be organized. And that was the one thing that growing up, those responsibilities that were placed on me, it's like, okay, hey, it doesn't matter what it is. You make sure that you work it into your schedule. Whatever's the priority is the priority, and that's what gets done. And so by having that ingrained in you, as you continue to grow older and life starts coming your way, even with challenges as far as being a student in college and having to learn how to navigate a life on your own, the freedom, but oh, I'm still supposed to study, so knowing that that structure was already set in place. When I went to college, some of my friends used to laugh at me because I would be the one coming right in and getting on my work when everyone else would be going out and having fun and staying up all night. It's like, okay, no, I'm doing the work first. You're staying up all night to do the work. But if I stayed up all night, I was staying up and it was the fun time. So just having those priorities that were instilled in me are things that I carried into my young adult life. And then once I started my career. So I'm so thankful for having that structure put in place and being up under that household with Bobby, you know,
Mhm.
because I learned then that if it's to be, it's up to me. And there are no excuses that need to be made, but you make sure you get the job done.
So, was confidence something you were taught or something you had to fight for?
I think it was something that I had to fight for because as I think about growing up, now as a grown woman, as I look back to, like I said, that diva that raised me at the time, I just saw that as that's just who she was. But as I started experiencing my own life and going through things, it's like, oh, no, no, no. That is what confidence is. That is why, as a young girl, being taught that when you talk to people, you look them directly in their eye, all of those things that embody you being confident in who you are. So at the time, those things that I saw, I didn't learn it then. It was something that as life happened, I learned what confidence was and how important it was once I started being confident because I wasn't always confident, believe it or not.
So, when was the first time you felt powerful?
The first time that I felt powerful, um, it really didn't, that power that I have within me now, I would say that I didn't start feeling that power and being a powerful woman not until I had experienced that domestic abuse relationship. I
Mm.
tell women all the time that while it was a traumatic experience and nothing that anyone should go through, whether it's a male or female, because domestic violence, is on the rise just as much for women as it is men. But it was one of the best things that happened to me because that's where the confidence was formed once I was able to heal from that and realize how important I am. And it's like, oh no, like nobody is ever going to disrespect me. I am somebody, I'm enough, I have things to bring to this world and to contribute. So that's really the first time that I felt just truly powerful in who I was.
Mm. So, can you tell us about those challenges you faced as a young Black woman? navigating professional spaces?
Oh, yes. So the one thing I think the challenge in the professional space, especially when I was in my younger career, being a young woman, I think that when you are in certain environments and you are having to work with people who maybe haven't worked with Black women, or maybe been exposed to just, not even just Black women, but just African Americans in general, there may be this perception that they have about you. And so having to break through those barriers, but also being one who can communicate, to speak well, write well. It was always sometimes a thing of where you hear the voice on the phone, but then when someone meets you, it's like, oh, you're Michelle. Mhm, it's me. So just that. But also, one thing about navigating corporate, being in the space of who I am, that there's always, or this feeling of always this extra eye, or I have to perform at a different level to make sure that my value is seen. So I felt like early in my career, and I shouldn't say early in my career, pretty much through a lot of my career, working harder to prove myself and show my value just because of who I was. Um, and also, when you are a woman who is confident in who you are, you carry yourself a certain type of way, sometimes you can be misunderstood. And in that being misunderstood, it's misunderstood as maybe being standoffish, or misunderstood in the fact that, ooh, she can be direct. You can be direct, and it's okay if you're direct. But, if it's a woman that's being direct, sometimes you're looked at differently. So being able to navigate in those spaces but still remain to who I was, and not allow the politics of corporate America, or just being in the workspace, to change who I was, how I treat people. Um, but it is something that I think that all women in that space deal with at some point or another.
So, with that being said, um, and you were able to navigate through those spaces. Can you tell us, um, your upbringing? How did your upbringing actually influence your leadership style? Because I know that, in order to navigate these corporate spaces, you've got to really be firm and stand in your truth. How
Mhm.
did did your upbringing have an influence on your leadership style?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. And one of the things about my leadership style is you have to be an empathetic leader. You have to be a leader that cares about your team, and your team has to know that you care about them and you have their back. And I think that that is one thing as a leader, that any team that I have ever led, that's one thing that they can say about me. And even today, I think about social media and some of the people that I've worked with in the past that I've been their leader. We are still in contact today, all these years. And that, to me, always lets me know the impact that you had on someone's life as the leader, because nobody really wants to hang out with the boss or have a relationship, or, get close. So being able to see, as I'm growing up, how you lead as a leader, one, being able to stand your ground. That's one thing. But like I said, being a leader that's empathetic, but a leader also that led by example. Good leaders lead by example. So that means that I'm not asking my team to do anything that I wouldn't do or hadn't already done. Um, being someone that your presence means so much in the leadership space, and not just the leadership space, but anywhere we are. And people don't even realize that. People are always watching us. They are nosy. They pay attention to everything. And if you want to be successful in leadership, how you present yourself, you may not think that it makes a difference, but that is half of your success in how you carry yourself, the way you present yourself, how you speak, all of that. So being able to see that from both sides, from both my mother and my father, it prepared me for the real world, corporate America. But more importantly, I think the one thing that I learned from them that helped me as a leader is just in the manner of how you communicate.
So let's transition over to, and let's talk a little bit about, your work in corporate America and your leadership evolution. First thing, again, so we just recap the point, is if you can tell us, like you spent over 25 years in corporate leadership. What kept you there for so long?
I had no choice. No, look, see that, going back to the women in survival mode, being a single parent mother, I, at that point, I felt like I had no choice but to stay there. Putting both of my children through college, being a parent that made sure that both kids were engaged in responsibilities. And anyone that has raised kids or raising kids today knows just the expense in being able to provide those activities. So that was kind of like my safety net and my comfort blanket. But also, one of the things I think that also kept me there is as I continued to elevate in my career, I was enjoying what I was doing because I enjoy working with people. So that, on top of the fact that I was blessed to be able to work with some really amazing people, I think that that has a lot to do with sometimes how long a person stays at a job or you stay in the field that you're doing. But along my career, I was blessed to work with some amazing people. And I think that that also is one of the reasons why, I was there so long as well.
So as we think about that, because I gotta say, when I just see the strength, especially from women, and I'm sorry to have to specify this, but with Black women, I mean, it's one of those things that it shows. To me, it shows more than just strength and resilience. It just shows the naturality of what the culture is like. So tell us about this culture, while you're in corporate America and how you had to navigate these spaces and the things that you were able to get to those young women that you helped to influence so much that they have learned from you.
Well, one of the things that I have taught them or helped them to understand is, like I was saying at the beginning, as far as your leadership skills and being the CEO of you, you have to understand how important you are and being in the right mindset and being able to lead yourself first. Because if you cannot lead yourself first, you can't lead anyone else. You can't stand out. And you can't really be successful. You'll just continue to keep going and going, but not get to achieve the things that you want to achieve. And prime example, and when I say that, a true leader, whether you're a leader in the home, your church, whatever it is, a true leader can use their voice clearly and confidently and not second guess what they've said or be concerned about what someone is going to think based off of what you said. So that's where the confidence comes in, being able to own who you are, knowing the thing and knowing your worth and what you know. Sometimes when we're in meetings, we're sitting there and everybody else is talking and you're sitting there in your head saying what you want to say, but you don't say it. And those are reasons why a lot of women don't advance or get the visibility that they want because you keep your mouth shut. So being able to communicate, so those are some of the things that as I work with women, I get them to understand that it first, not first, but everything starts and ends with you. And once you're able to understand that, then there's a different thought process. You shift your mind in how you think and approach things. You shift your mind in looking at solutions on how you handle certain things and focus on responding to things instead of reacting to things. Because if I reacted to a lot of the things the way that I probably wanted to, there would not have been a 25 plus year career. So you have to learn restraint, knowing what battles uh, are yours to carry that torch, and what things that you have to say, okay, you know what, this is just something that we're going to deal with, and go ahead and go on. But it all starts with you first knowing who you are, what values you bring to the table, and what your skill sets are. If you don't know what your skill sets are, it's hard for you to navigate where it is you want to go. Because if somebody comes to you and says, hey, what do you want to do? If you don't even know what you're good at, how can you even position yourself for the next role that may be coming your way?
Right.
Yeah.
As I just think about this, though, I mean, I know from the cultural perspective, especially when you don't see a lot of people that look like you. I mean, like, you've got to have some kind of questions in your mind as to how am I going to fit into this place? I mean, like, how does that work? And then, how are you able to get through that situation without having to face, you know, so much scrutiny? I'm sure you face some, but not as much scrutiny as normal.
Yes. Well, I think for me, I'm a little different maybe than some Black women that are, in that culture, in this space, because I feel like my whole life, even growing up in school, like in my neighborhoods, I've always been the minority.
Mhm.
So being exposed to that at an early age, you're kind of introduced to handling yourself differently because of the fact that there's a different expectation. Or, like I was saying before, too, some people may not even be used to you. So, prime example I used to get all the time in the workplace is, huh, you're so dressed up. I am not dressed up. Okay. At all. It's called professionalism. And so being taught that at an early age and seeing it on both sides, because my father, when I talk about sharp as a tack, down to making sure that every suit, the handkerchief had to match the tie, all of that.
Mhm.
But sometimes when you roll like that every single day, others look at you like, well, who do you think you are? Who I am?
Mhm.
So in those spaces, I had already been introduced to the different culture and how I was seen. So I think once I hit corporate, I was ready for that. So, like I said, I think my upbringing really prepared me for that space. Whereas some women who didn't have that upbringing, it is a culture shock, because you are looking for others that look like you or a support system, and it's not there. But one of the things that I also talk to women about with that, it goes back to the confidence and just being grounded in who you are, staying true to you, and not allowing that to change or alter how you feel about yourself or how you work. Because the one thing you can never deny, good work, no matter who it's from, male, female, whatever ethnic, you cannot deny that. So as long as you are showing up, you are professional, you are communicating in a professional manner and doing a good job, you will succeed. And sometimes, we've all been in situations where you don't have a leader that wants to help you grow, and that might be a reason where you don't go somewhere. But as long as you are on your job and focused on doing what you know you're supposed to do, that's all you need to worry about.
Mhm. So I want you to do a comparison for us. And let's talk about, like, you went to school at University of Indiana, which is in Bloomington.
Hello. So now you see what I'm talking about, Charles. I was introduced early.
So, and compared to where you are now, How does that make you feel? And did that change everything about not just culturally who you are, but it changed everything about setting the foundation that you set?
I think that it changed everything about setting the foundation, so to speak, because, sharing the things I've shared, culturally, and like, yes, going to Indiana University, um, I feel that that set the foundation because one,
Mm-hmm.
being at a reputable school like that, you are introduced to so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that foundation of you can be great was established then,
Mm-hmm.
but you can be great, but there are not a lot that are looking like you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're willing to do what you're supposed to do, you're going to go where you need to go. And so being able to say, okay, hey, yes, I went to Indiana University, and then people, they're like, oh. So that helps set the foundation of, even though I can tell you who I am, what my skills and abilities are, that's a little, as you say, a little cred to help you out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with that foundation, but not so much, like I said, culturally, but just setting the foundation for who I was and where I plan to go and take my life.
Wow. So I'll just tell you, I have relatives that are in Gary for one thing. So
Gary,
yes,
I was born in Gary.
yes, I have relatives that are in Gary, but also I have not only visited there, but I've actually I went to Bloomington.
And you, and you were like, oh, this is Bloomington.
Ooh, I'm like, yeah, it's definitely culturally different.
Oh,
And so and just wanting to understand, I ain't gonna say I wanted to understand that, but and having to navigate through that, there was a lot of uneasiness for me. And so the thing is, as being a people person, it kind of like it took a shift. And when I say it took a shift, it's like, well, again, I guess you have to be from that place, to kind of like see how that works. So that's just a different thing. And so as I think about leadership and how, how we're trying to how we want to make sure that we get people that look like you and I, we want to get them focused, but we also want to make sure that we get them what they need. And you're able to establish this wonderful platform that you've established. And my thing is, how much teaching and instructing do you help these young ladies with, to understand sometimes how that foundation may look a little different before it shifts? Because I understand having to be able to navigate all of that. How do you help them to get used to those kind of things?
that is a great question, and I don't know if you ever get used to it, but the one thing in helping them to understand that there may be things that you face and deal with, but you cannot take some of those things that you may encounter personally.
Mhm.
Um, I, there was a situation where, and I shared the story with a lot of the women that I work with in my career when I was in inside sales, and I was having a conversation with my manager at the time. I told her, hey, I wanted more. I was ready to elevate, and I wasn't really being challenged. And she told me I was doing a great job, but right now there just weren't any other roles available. But she agreed, you're doing a great job, Michelle. Now, as I'm walking back to my desk, Charles, somebody stops me and says, hey, I just saw on the website, on our corporate website, that there's a lead position posted in your department. Whose department? You talking about shocked? Because, like I said, as I'm walking back to my desk from having this conversation where you just told me there are no positions available. And so as I got back to my desk, I was just like, I cannot believe that you just bold-faced lied in my face. And that evening, it just bothered me so much. And then I started second guessing who I was. And it's like, oh, no, 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 no. That we're not going to do. Because this is either, because I said, well, does she not feel that I'm qualified for this? Why would she say that there wasn't anything available? Then it came in to my mind, oh, well, you already have picked who you want in that role. So that's why you didn't share it with me. And so the next day, when I got back to work, I went to her office and I didn't step all the way in. I just stood in the doorway and I said, hey, I saw there's a lead position posted for the department. And she said, well, are you going to apply for it? And I said, well, why would I apply for it when you just told me yesterday there was nothing available? And just the look. And then I just turned and I went back to my desk. And so, see, sometimes communication is so key and it's how you handle things.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing more that needed to be said after that. My point was made. I am aware of this position. I'm aware of what you told me yesterday. And I'm also aware of the fact that regardless if you already have someone picked out you don't want me in that role. And I used that experience and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm getting ready to show these people who they're dealing with. And after that, I stepped it up and I went on to win Inside Sales Rep of the Year. Not just that year, but the next year after that, and could have done it 3 years consecutively. But that third year, I got sick and took a medical leave for 3 months. And then when I came back, I was still in third place after being gone for 3 months. But I just said, you know what? Your health is important. We are not getting ready to do that. But I share that story with women all the time because that could have been a situation that ended someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I said, going back to how we respond to things versus reacting. I took that night to be like, I can't believe this. But then I had to remember who I was. And the next day, I just had to make you aware that I am aware that this job is available. And you knew it yesterday when we had this conversation.
Mm-hmm. So how do you navigate being the only or one of few in leadership spaces?
Being you. That's where the confidence comes in. That's where the confidence comes in because, as the saying goes, it's lonely at the top. When you are one of the only, it is a little lonely and you have to be grounded in who you are. But you have to learn to play the game. And, going back to you cannot deny good work. So when you are able to do good work, you can't be denied. And when you treat people like you want to be treated and treat people nicely and make them feel amazing, well, guess what? You have no choice but to eventually be like, you know what? I like her. And so that's the thing, staying just grounded in who you are, but that confidence is what allows you to navigate through those spaces. Because one thing about me, I'm always like this upbeat, happy-go-lucky person, always flashing a smile, the one that's always speaking, making sure you're feeling okay. But one thing that people always say is, well, I know not to mess with you. I don't know why. Because that Michelle, oh, there is a Michelle in there, like, don't mess with me. I've never really had to be her, in the corporate space like that. But it's all about, like I say, how you carry yourself, your presence, not getting involved in all the office BS. And when people are talking about people, no, I'm not in those conversations. So those things matter. And people don't even realize when you are the one that's always, engaged in those things are things that are going to hold you back. Come to work, do your job, do it well. You're not here to make friends, which so many people like make their job their life. But that's okay if you meet people along the way. But your first priority is to do your job. And that should be your focus, showing up on time, making sure it's done well. but also being able to communicate and just be professional and confident in who you are. And when you're able to be that person every single day, people start respecting you. Because, like I said, when you know what you bring to the table, oh, I have skill sets, I have things that I bring to the table. So, when you're in a situation where maybe in a meeting I said something and we're just going to keep talking like we didn't hear it, well, guess what? I repeat it. So you have to learn how to recognize situations where maybe your voice isn't being valued or your work, what have you. And even in life, it doesn't necessarily have to be from a corporate standpoint. You have to be able to be aware of those things, not be afraid to use your voice and be grounded in who you are, so that when those situations come up, you handle them with ease like it's nothing. And usually when those situations arise and you do have to show who you are. Like I used with the example, there was nothing that she could say, and there was nothing needed to be said. And you handle the situation and you go back to doing what you're doing. But that impact of, oh, okay, I need to think twice next time before I throw something out to her because she addressed me about it.
So, you mentioned a lot about communications earlier, which I think is very, very key. Can you tell us what did you learn about communication that most people overlook?
Well, I think the main thing that people overlook is how key and critical communication is. And not just in the manner and how you're able to speak, being able to write. Oh, I can write some things, I can speak things, but communication is key. And not only being able to communicate in a manner that people understand you, but not being afraid to communicate and use your voice. I see so many times that women are second guessing themselves about what they want to say and overthinking things instead of just doing it. When you just do it, you don't know what's going to happen. So quit overthinking that. Be confident in who you are, and whatever it is, use your voice. And I also think that the communication in the corporate space is critical because it allows people to know that you can represent the team or whatever it is. If there's a conference that comes up and they need to send somebody somewhere, where they're not going to send you if you've never opened your mouth, if you've never shown them that you are someone that can communicate well or communicate the strategy, whatever it is. But being able to communicate and being confident in using your voice, not second guessing it, is critical to not just only your success in corporate, but just success in life. Use your voice, people. Use your voice.
And so it sounds like this is also one of your key components that you help these young women with. What are some of the things that you've seen, with the young ladies that you work with, that you have to work with them most about?
I think the main thing is being grounded in who they are, the confidence piece.
Hmm.
Because a lot of them are dealing with situations, and not just young women, but just women in general, are dealing with the feeling of just overwhelmed, carrying so much and carrying it alone. And sometimes the things that they're carrying alone, it's because they haven't used their voice. You know,
Mm.
you get upset about all these responsibilities you have on you, or you're a woman, you're married, you're working, you're coming home, you got to cook, and you expect your husband to be able to read your mind. Well, if you're not communicating, how is he going to know, the things where you may need help in, or overthinking what somebody is going to think because you said this or asked this or you didn't do that, the whole people pleasing. And so the biggest thing is the confidence piece, because there are so many things that the women deal with, whether it's doubting their abilities. Well, that goes back to confidence. Um, People pleasing, that goes back to confidence, Because if you're grounded in who you are, while no, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I have to go back to, like I said, you're the priority, and put my thoughts and things first so that I'm able to stay grounded and not carry the weight of everything and feel at peace mentally so I can rest. Because there is a cost to carrying all those different things that women deal with that I help when they become overwhelmed. And the major cost is you lose who you are. And once you stop recognizing who you are, that's when you have a real problem, because how do you get back to who you were? Or how do you become someone even better if you don't even know who you are, where you're at?
Mm. So, can you give us an example? What does that look like when they've lost who they are?
A woman who has lost who she is, and become disconnected with herself
Mhm.
is the woman who is operating in autopilot and
Oh,
carrying so much
mhm.
and feeling like this is what she's supposed to do, but not understanding that you don't have to prove yourself by carrying all those things. It looks like the woman who has imposter syndrome because of the fact that she's become disconnected to who she is. She doesn't She second guesses everything that she does. She overextends, she overgives. So that's what it looks like. And getting them to get back to themselves. And in my coaching program, I have a framework. It's called the Presence to Power Method. And it's a 5-step process. And it allows a woman to first start with the first step is that awareness. You have to recognize and understand where you are, but what led you to get to this point. Sometimes it could be a relationship that ended and you're still carrying the weight of those things and not feeling that you're enough or what have you. And then that carries over into everything else in your life. So once you start second guessing yourself and feeling like you're not enough, well, I don't feel like I'm enough on my job, my life, I mean, everything. So women, they're not able to be at peace with who they are. A lot of women that become disconnected and don't even realize who they are anymore, like I said, it's just autopilot, and you're going through the motions and carrying the weight of all of these things that are causing you to feel this way, and thinking that there's no way out. Oh, there is. And a lot of women who are in that mode, just carrying so much for years, they're like, well, this is what I've been doing, so this is how life should be. And it's like, no, there's so much more that's available to you and your life when you are connected with who you are and are the woman that you've always desired to be. But it takes work, and it's a mindset shift. It's a matter of doing the reflective work and being honest with yourself, because that is another thing. A lot of times when women are in that space, they don't even recognize, or they can't even be honest with themselves to say that that's where they are.
Wow. Well, that's a powerful moment because I think some of those things that you mentioned earlier, like the lack of confidence, not feeling good just about themselves in general, and just bring everything up that takes things away from them, is probably what leads to these negative thoughts that go through the mind. And
Mhm.
so I think when it comes down to that, again, I think this is where your program and the things that you do are so important because, I think it's the work that you have to do to get them to build back up. So when you do that, so let me just ask you this because I think that's the more pertinent question would be
Mhm.
when they're like that, do you have to bring them all the way down to bring them back up, or do you meet them where they are and you just build them up?
I meet them where they are and build them up. And in meeting them where they are, like I said, helping them understand that awareness, we have to unpack what happened to get you to this point. And
Mhm.
it's usually in that first critical step of doing that where everything becomes so evident to the woman of, wow, how she got there. And then that's when the work starts on how we get you back to who you were or an even better version of who you desire to be.
Mhm. So let's move over. Let's talk a little bit about your entrepreneurship and meaningful moments of power, because I think with you leaving corporate America to establish what you're establishing, I think it's something for the big stage that I think a lot of women need to take heed to this, but I think people in our community need to understand that there are professionals like you that are doing some work that can actually be beneficial to them as we move forward in life. What inspired you to create meaningful moments of power?
Well, one, knowing that I wanted to use my voice, because when I first created Meaningful Moments of Power, I really wasn't focused on coaching in the beginning. It was more so being in that motivational speaking space. And as I started out in that area, just seeing how many women responding to the messaging and sharing things that they were going through, it's like, oh no, this is where you need to be pouring yourself into. And what, like I said, going back to even back to domestic violence days, I said then I wanted to help women. And, as I think about how I was able to transform and, as I say, restore, rebuild, and reinvent myself, it was my faith in God, but it was also other women who poured into me that had dealt with some of the same challenges, whether it was being a single motherhood, navigating divorce, being a woman in the corporate space. There were women that helped me along my journey, and I wanted to be that for other women so that they can know that, okay, hey, I can make it, I can do things, I can overcome stuff. And we all go through things in life. That is the thing. We all go through something in life. And if your life has been great thus far, I'm so excited for you. But there is going to be something that pops up in life. There is going to be a defining moment that happens in your life that stops you and causes you to question everything about who you are, what you've done. And when that happens, if you don't know who you are, it's so hard to get out of that space and figure out where you need to go. And so when I work with women, they have that clear path of what the next step needs to be in their life. Once they're able to reconnect back to who they and are grounded and can be confident and clear using their voice and peace mentally, and they're able to rest. A lot of women who are disconnected and overwhelmed, they cannot rest. And when I say they can't rest, I'm not talking about take a break and go sit on the couch. I'm talking about sleep. You can't sleep when your mind is racing with all these thoughts, or you're already thinking about everything that's on your plate for tomorrow, or you're over in your head because of what you didn't get done before you left the office today, and who's just so many things. So when you enter into that space, just being able to rest does so much for your body, your mindset, everything. And so those are the things that women are able to walk away with. And that's how she's able to reconnect back to who she is and be that woman. Like I said, either return to who she was or be the version that's better. But yeah, we all go through things. And if it hasn't happened, oh, it's going to happen.
Wow. So like, are you when you help these women, or when you have your workshops and things of that nature, are they virtual or are they in present?
Both in-person events as well as virtual, group events where I have master classes, and I also have it's called Reclaim Your Power, and it's a 5-day challenge, and it's something that I started. I've been having the challenges, but as far as sticking to that name is something that I said, you know what, this is going to be the name of the challenge going forward, but there may be just a different theme around it because no matter what the woman is dealing with, because all women don't deal with the same thing. You may have someone that feels that she has the confidence, but she's just second guessing some things. And it's like, my confidence isn't where it used to be, and I just need to get back there. So everyone deals with different things. So going back to kind of the meeting, women where they are,
Mm-hmm.
it's guiding them through the tools that they need to be able to sustain that transformation once they've made it through, like my coaching program. So my coaching program is a 90-day program. And then I also offer 90-minute power sessions, because sometimes there are those things where a woman may feel like she doesn't need that extensive long 90-day help, but let's just work through some of these things that I'm dealing with. But the main thing in doing that in the different platforms that I have, whether it's virtually or in person, is that ongoing support that I provide to them. When we're in the 5-day challenge, everyone has access to me after the session ends if there's a question that comes up. And I usually do separate it like with the VIP option. So after each challenge, they are afforded the opportunity of like a 30-minute Q&A. So just being able to provide those different types of things for women to be able to connect in what is comfortable for her. Because some women don't want to be at an in-person event around other people talking about these things, or even virtually, because these are things that the average person isn't going to raise their hand and say, you know what, I am so overwhelmed. I am dealing with imposter syndrome, this, that, and the other. So you have to provide the space for them by having these type of events, by posting information to let them know they're not alone, but then also giving the opportunity to have those one-to-one sessions that are available for women who may not feel comfortable being in a group setting, whether it's virtually or at an in-person event.
So, what does the name itself, Meaningful Moments of Power, what does that mean? What does that represent?
It represents that the name kind of came to me because, like I said, at first it was all about the motivational speaking. And I feel that my voice is powerful. I shouldn't say I have a powerful voice. And so at the time, I felt like I was dropping those meaningful moments of power on everyone. And so from there, as I started working with women, more so in the coaching space, it's like, this is what's happening. Meaningful moments of power are happening for women. Transformation is happening. And so that's where the whole meaningful moments of power came from. And what it means is you can be one place today and tomorrow somewhere else,
Yeah.
as long as you just take the step to do something different and be better. So those meaningful moments of power. And a lot of times we think it has to be this big grand gesture. No, it's just a moment. Just that moment. And when you step into your power or make a change, it's that meaningful moment that allowed you to become powerful. And I have a client that I'm working with, and I loved it after like a couple weeks. And she had said something in a session, and I've been saying it for weeks now. After she said it, she said, I have the power and I can do whatever I want to do. That's it. That is it. We all have the power and we can do whatever we want to do, as long as you believe that and believe the power that's already within us. The greatness is already within all of us, but sometimes we just need a little help to bring it on out, or someone to help you see what you don't see.
Wow. I gotta say, um, I would think that more and more women, especially when we get to the end of the show here, would really need to take the opportunity to check out these things that you're doing, because um, just listening to you explain this, it actually is a powerful thing. But when it comes to it being so powerful, Have you ever had any of your clients to like that's completed the program, but in the process of going through it, they felt the overwhelmingness of learning how much power they actually had?
Yes. It's a shock to them, because when you become disconnected or never even felt powerful, when you start feeling that shift, it's like, okay, I can't even be like this. Yes, you can. Embrace this, embody this new identity. And that's the whole thing that I share with women. Like,
Hmm.
it's an identity shift. Because
Hmm.
to go where you've never been or to do something you've never done, you have to be a different person.
Yeah.
You can't stay that same person that if you think you're going to achieve this goal and this requires you to do all this work and your goal is to get off work and come home and just sit on the couch and Netflix and chill. Well, I'm going to tell you, boo, it's not going to happen. But if you are willing to take a step and do the work, the power is in you to have whatever you want. And that's with anything in life, all of us. But, sometimes we just get comfortable
Hmm.
and or just accept that things are just how they are. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
things can change. And if you want things to be better, they can be better. But you just have to believe that they can get better. And as you do the work, it will happen.
So, what problem are you most passionate about solving for women?
The problem that I'm most passionate about solving for women is helping them to understand how important they are and the value that they bring. No matter if you're dealing with a challenge, like you are amazing. We have so many skills, gifts, abilities, and we've done so much to help shape the world. So it's like, don't dim your light, be you. And that's one of the things, the biggest thing that I help women see, but be your authentic self. Not just be you, but your authentic self, whatever it is. And I try to use myself as that example because I am who I am. You never know who you're going to get on a certain day. I mean, you might get Miss So Energetic, and you might get the day where I am bringing it to you, bringing those meaningful moments of power or giving you something that's going to disrupt your mindset of what you've been thinking so that you can start thinking differently. So it's that being you. That's the thing that I'm most passionate about helping women to understand is when you're you
Hmm.
and you love you and own everything about you, you are unstoppable. There's nothing you can't do. There's no job that you can't have. Happiness and joy because it all starts inside.
Hmm.
And it's our thought process. And every morning I wake up and I'm intentional about doing work to get my mind right before I even do anything.
Hmm. So, what makes your platform different from traditional coaching?
I think that my platform, I feel, is different from traditional coaching because my my coaching program is not just about motivational fluff. It's about activation and transformation. Women are, I call it my presence to power integration suite. And those are the tools that I use to help women shift their mindset so that they're able to sustain the change. So the tools that they're given. And also, the one thing that separates my coaching program from most coaching programs, what I'm coaching on, I've lived. I've
Mhm.
lived and I've overcome. And I bring 25 plus years of leadership into this space as opposed to, and not knocking what anyone else has done, but those are some of the things that separate me because a lot of times I have women that I work with that tell me that they have been getting help from either a therapist or a psychologist. And I have got more from working with you than them. And a
Mhm.
lot of times it's because I can relate to everything she's talking about, everything she's feeling, because I've been there, I've felt it.
Mhm.
And others that haven't walked in those shoes, while yes, they can give you some strategies, but I give you the strategies, but also I can connect with you in a way that someone else doesn't. And that is what makes my coaching program different from others.
So let's delve a little bit deeper into your women's advocacy and empowerment, because I mean you've already explained what that is, and you're an actual great example as to what that is. So tell us, what does being a women's advocate mean to you?
Being a woman's advocate to me means being someone that supports and uplifts and empowers other women, creating spaces where women feel safe, where they can be vulnerable and share the things that they're going through. But more importantly, being a part of the change to help women become better. That's what I feel, being a woman advocate means. Making sure that we have things that are in place to help women, making sure that we're providing activities and things for them to learn and grow. But most importantly, along with those things, is being the example that women need to see, being that role model of what advocacy is for women and embodying that.
So, one of the silent struggles high achieving women face.
A lot of the silent struggles that high achieving women face is the fact that they're burnt out, but they're not saying anything. And when that happens, that's when your confidence starts eroding, and they don't even realize that that will be the end game effect to that burnout. We all get to a point sometimes where it's like, whew. But the thing that the high achieving woman deals with is it's the burnout and not speaking on it.
Mhm.
And when that happens, it carries over in every area of her life because that burnout may be coming from the demands of all the things she's carrying at home and then all the responsibilities she has on her job, or vice versa. All the things she's carrying on her job and those expectations, and then that ends up impacting her home life or her relationships or how she starts interacting with other people. So it works both ways, but it's the burnout. It's the
Mhm.
burnout and being able to be honest and say, hey, I am in a spot where I don't like where I am, but I don't know how to change things. And saying, I need to take a step to do something different. And that step is deciding to choose you. And most women feel guilty about choosing themselves and making themselves a priority.
Wow. Now, as I think about that, and I'm just imagining, I'm sure that I've actually run across or worked with a lot of women that have been in that space. But when they're in that space and, they just keep that engine burning and they just keep going and they keep doing what they do. But then when you see them sometimes over in silence, you know something's wrong.
Oh, yeah. Because she over there heated, irritated, mad, and just, but not even opening her mouth. Okay. Yes.
Right. So,
Yeah.
how do you get them to talk about that and to alleviate that problem? Because I think, well, just my opinion. You can correct me, but I think that what men in workplaces, especially, do to women, are they put this extra pressure on women to do so many things. Women respond where they do what they have to do, but it's that process of what's happening in that process that they're not talking about, they're not expressing, and there's a lot of displeasure there.
Mhm.
How do you get them to fix that? Hey, no, don't do that, because that's just a bad thing that happens in the corporate world with women.
Oh yes. And so how I get them to fix that
Mm-hmm.
is going back to what makes my program so special is those lived experiences, because I was that woman. And one of the things too, how I talk about doing a good job, when you do a good job, everything starts getting thrown at you. And to the point that you just made, you're like, okay, I got to do it. And sometimes we take that as a badge of honor. And before you know it, like I said, you're mad, you're irritated. And one of the ways that I help women to understand that sometimes that does not help you, because there was one month where I felt like I was the queen traveling the world. I was in Mexico one week. I was in Bucharest, Romania the next week. And then I was in Katowice, Poland.
Mm.
When I got home, you talk about wore out, got sick. And then I had to step back and say, you were proud about all this. Okay. Coming home, I was home for a day, flying back out on Sunday. So, and then now you see where I said Poland, Romania, time zones, all that stuff, the
Yes.
rest. And when you're traveling, you're either doing work while you're traveling, you're away from your job, and it's whether you're in a conference, workshop, whatever. But what you do every day is not getting all of your attention. So you're still trying to get that done coming off. And like I told them, I made myself sick
Mm.
where I had a mouth where I could have said, hey, you know what? This is a little too much for me to plan in 1 month. Let's space some of these trips out. But no, thinking like, oh, it's great. They want me to go here and there. No, girl, you're going to kill yourself. Like, don't do this. So that's the thing, using those examples that, guess what? All that isn't the priority. You're the priority, because sometimes life can happen. And life happened for me. You know, I relocated to Atlanta for a role. And that role that I relocated for the last time when I was on your show
Mm-hmm.
is no longer here because I was laid off from that job.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the over 300,000 Black women that have been laid off since last year.
Yep.
Okay. So it doesn't matter who you are, life can happen. So when you're doing all these things, pouring into a job and losing yourself trying to prove, guess what? One day they can just give you that golden handshake, and that's that.
Yeah, because life be life, and
Hello? Okay. It's like, how that happened? Okay, yes, life be life, and that's why you have to know who you are. Because
right.
when life happens, what are you going to do? And
Exactly.
just that example that I just used as far as the layoffs, I mean, it's happening all across our country, not just with women.
Mm-hmm.
But for some people, Charles, that is a sting that a lot of people cannot bounce back from.
Yeah.
And so being confident and grounded in who you are, whether it's something that you've been doing on the side that you've been passionate about, that you can step into that space, or being able to pick yourself back up and get back out there without doubting and allowing that situation to happen. Because, I mean, it's part of work, it will happen. You know, companies make decisions and you roll with it. But that's why you have to stay grounded and not go and give so much, going back to okay, being gone like that, traveling like that, because anything can just happen. So keeping yourself the priority, maintaining your rest, your peace, those are the things that will bring you joy and success in your life, whether it's in the corporate space or the personal space. That's why everything goes back to you. Everything goes back to you. And that's the one thing that we don't realize, that you're the most important thing that you have.
So let me do us this one favor as we're talking about this, because I think that's very key. And when we think about, where there are men that may, in their time frame or their life, where they decide, where, they broke the chain and I'm going out to do what I got to do for me. So I'm going to do my own thing. Compare what's the difference between when a man does that and a woman does that.
He's a man. No. Well, I mean, that's the first big difference, and I think we can be honest that there is a difference when a man does something versus a woman, period, no matter what it is. So when a man makes that decision to go out there and say, I'm going to do what I want to do, some of the struggles, no, I shouldn't say struggles, but some of the things that a woman would face, that man is not going to have to deal with that just because he is a man. There may be some things as he gets out there and sees that, oh, it's a little different, because there's a difference when you are the employee and the employer. When you walk into a building and you're starting a job and everything's set up for you, you learn the job. But when you break out and say, oh, I'm doing this on my own, guess what? You're everything. You're putting everything together, all of your systems and putting everything in place. And that's a different just magnitude of the things that are on you. Forget this thing that you were passionate about that you said that you're going to do. Well, how are you going to make it happen? So, it's just that. But I think that when it comes to men and women, there's just that disparity where things are just a little easier for a man if he decided to jump out there and do that, as opposed to a woman being really clear on what it is that you want to do, how you're going to make it happen, and the confidence that she needs to be able to do that.
And another question here that just popped in my mind as you were talking is, in all of this, how does a woman have to continue to maintain her sanity in supporting her husband despite working? He's working, but she needs to support him. And when I say that, I'm sorry for giving that little laughter, because sometimes when you think about that in general, it's like, well, why the hell she still got to support him and he's working just like I am? But you know how that goes with a lot of men that
We're a team. We're a team.
right.
Okay.
So how is what's kind of like some of the things that as you're teaching these young ladies, like what do they have to do, in order to continue that balance where she's still rising, but she's still pouring in supports for him to keep him comfortable and secure. How does that work?
Communication. This is where communication being the key comes into play,
Mm-hmm.
because she are, like you said, she's trying to elevate herself. She has a lot going on, but still trying to support him.
Mm-hmm.
And but we're a team. So if we have entered into this together, that's something that we've already, agreed on. That there are going to be times where I may have to do that, and the tables may turn where he's supporting her when she may not be in. But
Right.
that's where communication comes is so critical, because you can't read someone's mind. You can't know how somebody is feeling, or he can't know how you feel if something has started to bother you about all that you're carrying in having to support him at the time. Because if we're a team, I'm going to support you.
Right.
But if things come within that support where I start feeling challenges, that's when I have to be okay and not have that fear or that doubt of what you may say or think or whatever, of using my voice and communicating with you how I feel and what I need as well.
Mm. That's really interesting, and because I think, especially in today's time, I'm more than sure that there are an enormous amount of women that are facing these kind of challenges, because we understand as to what has transpired as of from 2025 up until now, where there were an enormous amount of women that were losing jobs, You know, of course, there were a lot of men that lost jobs, but there were an enormous amount of women that are out of work as of 2025, and that's just uncanny.
Yes.
And I just think that, you know, in just thinking about this, you know, I know you say communication, because when you say communication, that is just that's stuck up in here anyway. But I mean, that
Other
reinforces a
things.
lot, you
Yes.
know, because you know sometimes communication, especially if it's off, it can cause major problems.
Oh yeah.
And I just think that as you know, in just looking at this, um, I think how do you know, it's kind of it sounds kind of strange, I guess, but I mean, you know, you can communicate. Men and women can communicate, but there's always something that's missing in the switch.
Yes.
And so, when how can she be much more clear in the communication, because it's guaranteed. I'm a man. It's guaranteed that he's going to miss something that she's communicated. How can they try to make that about as concrete as possible?
Well, first of all, in that communication and when she communicates with him, she has to take her emotions out of it so that the man will be able to receive what it is that she's saying and what she needs.
Mhm,
Because when our emotions are tied into, sometimes when we communicate, your message does not come out the way that you want it to,
mhm.
or you're saying some things that are only felt in that frustration that you're feeling.
Okay.
And so that just makes the situation worse. So the one thing is being calm and taking the emotions out of it, and also making sure that when you are communicating with him, that he is in the right space.
Ah,
Like, not getting him when he just came in the door and you know that he needs time to wind down and he's like, no, this is not the time. So,
mhm.
just like knowing there's a time to pick your battles, there is a right time to have a conversation as well. And so that's one of the things in knowing when to have the conversation, being truly honest and not being afraid of what he may say or think, because that's a lot of times we're afraid of what someone's going to say when we're totally being honest and letting someone know how we feel. But again, going back to what I said before, this is your partner. Okay.
Yeah.
This is your partner. But taking those emotions out of it is what really helps him not to miss the message.
Mm. So, as we take this down here, you know, here in this wonderful time, can you please, do you have any words of wisdom and encouragement for our audience, as well as how they can connect with you via social media,
Yeah.
and how they can connect with you on your website and the platforms and the things that you're doing?
Yes, yes. Well, I think that one, I have enjoyed this discussion just like I enjoyed my first opportunity to be here with you. But the one just point or statement that I will make for everyone that is tuned in with us tonight, and whether you're a male or a female, as I have continued to stress all evening, it all goes back to you. Whatever it is that you desire in life, it all goes back to you knowing who you are, being confident in who you are, and just embracing that and embodying it. Not being concerned about the outside noise of the world or what anyone will say, but being bold and unapologetic and walking in the power that you have. And if you're able to embrace that, whew, I'm telling you, you have no idea just the peace and the joy that will come to your life. And so that, that's what I will leave the audience with. And also for any woman who may be feeling disconnected or feeling stuck and overwhelmed, one thing that I am doing this month in April is I'm doing a case study because I am working on writing a book. And so wanting to capture just different angles and feedback from different women. And so this month, if there's any woman who wants to be involved in the case study that I'm doing, it just involves us working together one-to-one for 3 days for 30 minutes. And all I would want is just a testimonial about that experience. So if there's any woman who's interested in doing that, you can connect with me on all platforms: LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook at Michelle Clarkson, and then also at meaningfulmomentsofpower.com. So I would love to have some feedback from some women, because I'm sure that there is somebody that's been watching us tonight and she's like, "Ooh, get out of my video, girl. I'm talking to you, sis." Yes,
Well,
talking to you.
well, before I do my closing monologue, I want to tell you how I appreciate you for being here again. And again, I'm so happy and proud to have been connected to you, but also to tell you that being supportive is more than anything, because I appreciate the things that you are doing, because they are meaningful and they are impactful. It's just one of those things that we have a lot of people out there that they don't know that until they connect with you. And I honestly think that this is about the time that they need to do that. And for those of you that are watching on all of our streaming channels, if you have not connected, especially on the YouTube channel, so if you have not subscribed and enabled all your notifications, I ask if you will please support us by doing that, because I'd like to make sure that as many of you get the opportunity to watch the shows live and you get the firsthand experience of what our guests are saying. You also get the opportunity to go through and you can watch each and every interview that has been conducted here on the show.
Like, share, and subscribe, everybody, because he every week is coming with somebody amazing.
And I appreciate that. And so, in closing, I'd like to say tonight we witnessed the power of truth, the courage of reinvention, and the beauty of a woman who chose herself and now teaches others to do the same. Michelle Clarkson reminds us that confidence is not a luxury reserved for the few. It is a foundation available to all of us when we decide to honor our voice, our needs, and our worth. Her journey from corporate leadership to transformational coaching is a testament to what happens when purpose meets intention. When a woman stands in her truth, she shifts the atmosphere. She changes her family. She transforms her community. She alters the trajectory of generations. As we close tonight's episode of America in Black and White, let Michelle's message echo in your spirit. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to honor your needs. And you are worthy of walking fully in your power. Good night, family. Stay bold, stay grounded, and stay powerful. I'm your host, Charles King. This is American Black and White. We will see you guys tomorrow night for another great show.